作为国内首屈一指的制药公司，马化工联药并没有像坊间想象般赚取了巨大利润，反而面临了原料采购、进军生物制药领域方面的挑战。疫情推动了现代医药的迅速发展，董事经理里奥纳德阿礼夫是怎么带领公司快速适应常态的呢？
The pandemic has changed the world so much. As a leading local pharmaceutical company, what impressed you the most since the outbreak of COVID-19?
If you remember back to March last year, it started with China going into a lockdown. Now, China and India tend to be the largest exporter of raw materials into the pharmaceutical industry in Malaysia. So we had the disruptions that were caused by the lockdown in China. And as China was coming out of its lockdowns, India went into a lockdown. So that was probably the most challenging period we had because we could operate at 50%. We had additional stocks to cater for our customers, but raw material was becoming a concern. So we needed to work. So it was actually quite lucky the fact that we tend to diversify our purchasing of raw material between China and India. So had China and India shut down at the same time, I think we would have had a lot of issues. So in that sense, we were relatively lucky.
Does Pharma consider to produce your own vaccines?
With vaccines, it's a volume game. With 33 million population, we're actually very, very small to be a vaccine producer. So from a vaccine security standpoint, there is an argument to get some level of self-sufficiency in Malaysia. The challenge, I think, for any producer, not only DPHARMA, anybody looking at it, is are you able to produce that vaccine cost effectively if your market is only going to be Malaysia? We are thinking about ways in order to try to make sure that Malaysia can have its vaccine security. But it may have to be something slightly different than just putting up a vaccine plant, because the challenge with that is that you might end up with a facility that becomes a white elephant the moment the pandemic goes away, because it will go away, whether it's completely eradicates itself or whether it becomes endemic. Vaccination becomes an option that's available. You can choose whether to vaccinate or not to vaccinate. So there's a lot of considerations. DPHARMA has the capability of doing fill and finish. So we can bring the vaccine in bulk and do fill and finish in Malaysia. That's one option, but that doesn't give you the long-term security that the country may require. So one of the challenges is to say, okay, how do you get that security without ending up with a white elephant? That's one of the challenges, the way we are looking at vaccines in totality as a potential project for the country.
Maybe you can share about the future business plan.
So we've been moving into the biological space quite aggressively over the course of the last 8 or 9 years. So that's one of the areas where we continue to push. We're registering new products in terms of biologics. And of course, one of the natural biologics that has raised its profile during the period of the pandemic is obviously vaccines as well. So we've been looking at vaccines for a number of years. The Malaysian consumption of vaccines outside of a pandemic period is actually quite low. But we've been trying to figure out a way of where we can actually assist the government in its national vaccination plan. We want to augment the government program.
You have more than 30 years experience in this industry, right? So what makes you so passionate about this industry?
This industry, no 2 days are exactly the same. There's always challenges. I mean, look at the pandemic. It took us by surprise, but having said that, we've had to adapt. And the secret behind being involved in the pharmaceutical industry is exactly the adaptation. You have to adapt to ever-changing regulatory environments. You have to adapt to ever-changing consumer behavior. You have to adapt to ever-changing situations, disease burdens, etc. So, if you ask me why I've stayed so long in this industry, it's very much because no 2 days are the same. I don't feel the years, to be quite honest. I'm still as motivated today as the first day I came into the industry.